I am on page 21 in my Beyond Words workbook. So if you could turn to page 21 as well, that would be great. And we're looking at this old nursery rhyme called Cobbler, Cobbler. Now let's read it together. So you read it with me. Cobbler, cobbler, mend my shoe. Have it done by 2:30. Stitch it up and stitch it down, and I'll give you half a crown. All right. Well, there are some words here that I don't know what they mean. At least I don't think I know what they mean. I know that I've made a dessert before with fruit and kind of a batter that was called a cobbler, and my family really liked it. I used peaches from my tree. So cobbler, cobbler, is that the kind of cobbler that we're talking about here? Do you think? Would that make sense? Probably not, because we're talking about shoes here, and I don't think that shoes have much to do with the dessert cobbler. So he's asking someone, it looks like somebody's asking this cobbler to do something to his shoe. All right. So if I don't know what the word cobbler means, what can I do? Where can I look? I can look in a dictionary. And in a dictionary, there's going to be a lot of different definitions of the word cobbler, and I could pick what works. So let me hurry on my computer here. I'm going to get on to dictionary.com. And I'm going to type in cobbler. Let's see what we get. So we've got a deep dish fruit pie with a rich biscuit crust, usually only on top. Well, I don't think that's the one. That was the dessert I was talking about. Let's look at the next definition. It says it's a noun, a person who mends shoes. Well, that sounds like the definition that would fit with this poem. Now, mend. What does mend mean? So if I don't know what mend means, since a cobbler is someone who mends shoes, I can also look that up. So I'm going to look up mend. Okay. Oh, to fix. Okay. So I can mend. If I mend my shoes, I fix them. I repair them. Well, that makes sense. Cobbler, cobbler, fix my shoe. Okay. Have it done by 2:30. Well, that sounds like a time to me. What's another way to say 2:30? Think about that. Another way to say 2:30 is 2:30. It's probably 2:30 in the afternoon. 2:30 p.m. because if it was 2:30 a.m., that's pretty much the middle of the night, and nobody wants to be awake then. So, cobbler, cobbler, fix my shoe, have it done by 2:30, so by 2:30. Stitch it up and stitch it down. Well, I know what a stitch is. I know that you sew with a needle and thread. And I'll give you half a crown. Now the crown here, are they talking about a crown that a king wears? Would that make sense, to cut a crown in half that a king wears and give it to somebody? That sounds a little bit far-fetched, so probably not. So think about what a crown, what they're talking about here, and think about what you give to somebody who would fix something for you? So think about that. And if you guessed that it was probably some sort of money, then I think you're right. Now back to what a cobbler means. It kind of sounds like if a cobbler is fixing shoes, he's simply a man that, or a woman, I shouldn't just say a man, he's someone, he or she is someone who fixes shoes. Now, the reason we don't hear a lot about cobblers now is because we're kind of a throwaway society. And when we buy a pair of shoes, they're usually not terribly expensive. So when we buy a pair of shoes, if they fall apart, it's usually much easier just to go to the store and get another pair. Okay? However, long ago, when this was written, people usually only had maybe 1 or 2 pairs of shoes, and shoes were expensive, very expensive. So if your shoe broke or the heel kind of wore off, they got kind of worn out, you take them to a cobbler, and the cobbler would fix your shoes. It would have been a lot less expensive to go to a cobbler than just to buy more shoes. Nowadays, there are still cobblers around. There's one that's kind of by my school where I teach, and I've actually taken a pair of shoes there that were expensive that I didn't want to get rid of, and I had him fix, and this cobbler was a man, and I had him fix the leather strap that had broken off. My dad has a pair of boots that he's had forever since I was a little girl, and I guess they were really expensive, and he takes them to a cobbler all the time, and the cobbler will put a new heel on and such. So cobblers do still exist, but we don't see a lot of them. All right. And for kids now, when you grow out of your shoes, you usually just get new ones anyway. So usually kids don't go to cobblers because you're not going to buy really, really, really expensive shoes that are maybe $200 or $300 a pair because your foot is growing. So you wouldn't be able to wear those shoes very long unless maybe you had a whole bunch of brothers and sisters and you passed those shoes down to them. Anyway, I hope that this helps you understand the poem a little better. Thank you for listening, and let's move on with the lesson.